Or so
Yeah.
this is fun because I'm here with someone who lives in the next. I don't know. I'm in Alta. How far are you from here? Like 8 miles or something?
Let's
You and
see.
Victor?
A couple of extra. I think it's 8 miles to Drigg. So, okay,
Oh,
10.
okay. So we're 10. But we're still in our own little spaces, not doing this live, which, oh well, just because of the timing of it. But you guys are doing a Kickstarter project for a new book, Buddy Pegs, on kids' bikes, taking the lead. And Janine, you guys have had a whole history of being in the bike industry. And this book, it seems like, was really motivated by the decline in kids riding bicycles.
Yeah. And you would think, especially living in a mountain town like this, you wouldn't think that because we see so many kids out riding bikes, getting after it. So it is, we live in a little bit of a bubble here, I think. But yes, in general, there has been a decline. And that's for so many reasons that we could, get into. But a lot of people will realize whether it's busy schedules, people are fearful, there maybe aren't good pathways. There's so many reasons that I think leads to the decline in kids riding bikes. And I think that's goes hand in hand with the same reasons why there's been a rise in childhood obesity. They all kind of work together, I think, hand in hand. You can connect it to the environment as well. So we spent 20 years in the bike industry, 14 of those years running a bicycle shop. And I think, spending so much time with customers over the years and a lot of families, just listening to, I think their concerns about raising kids today, especially in this hyper competitive world we live in, and their fears. We would listen to them speak about their kids, and then we would see how they react when they talk about their kids on a bicycle. And over the years, it really tied in, I think, that connection of resilience, independence, freedom, all these qualities that we feel like the bicycle can bring to adults. It's the same thing transfers to children. And so I think we just were listening to those families for all those years. And then we had our own child. And then once we had our own kid, it all really came to light. We were watching him grow and watching him tackle things in his life. And we would see him ride his bicycle and just, I don't know, it just all kind of wound together. And we got to a point where we decided we wanted to really focus on getting more kids on bikes and taking the advocacy part of things that we were part of for so many years, running a bike shop as well, and just kind of moving more into that realm. So 2 years ago, we decided to sell the shop and focus on this children's media company, Buddy Pegs. And yeah, we brought that first book to market a year and a half ago. B is for bicycles, and now we're trying to come through with the follow up.
Awesome. Awesome. And how did the first book go?
The first book was great. We did a Kickstarter, and we did a 30-day Kickstarter campaign for that, and we were able to hit our goal, which brought that book to life. And I think we had 1,000 book print, and half of those were taken by backers. And then the rest we started distributing, selling to small shops, bike shops, and a couple of boutiques. And then we were lucky. QBP, Quality Bicycle Products, is a big bicycle parts distributor out of Minnesota, and Trek as well. Both companies we had worked with over the years, they took the book in as distributors, and so now they distribute to bike shops across the country. So BS for Bicycles, I think, is in about 200 shops across the country. So that has been great. They have been super supportive, and it's been a really nice way to get into shops, which we really love because that's what we did for so many years. And so that has been incredible. So
Cool. Do you
yeah.
also have it in Create Space or on
No,
no
no,
Kindle?
we no, because we don't have a digital yet. Create Space would be, is that kind of, isn't Create Space kind of the
That's
order?
Amazon's thing. It just makes it easier than printing your own and shipping them to Amazon because Amazon is annoying
Yes,
that
exactly.
way
And
and
the
wants to own
reason,
the world.
totally. And the reason why we didn't do that is because highly illustrated books,
Yeah.
the art quality is better with offset printing
Totally.
and versus the digital. And so we decided to do that, and it's been great. We've sold through almost 6,000 copies of B is for Bicycles since it came out in 2015, which has been amazing. And a lot of that, again, is through the bike industry. We are on Amazon. That really took us about a year to get on Amazon, because as a bike shop, we definitely had, Amazon was hard for us. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But we did it because we realized that not everyone is going to a bike shop, preaching
Right.
to preaching to the choir type of thing. We want people to be able to access it anywhere. And maybe a family member has another family member somewhere where there isn't a good bike shop. And if they can get to the book and get more kids excited about riding, Amazon is that's the path. So.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's just trade-offs with getting more eyeballs, making it search easy for people to find what they're looking for. And yeah. So I'm just like recalling in my last, couple of weeks, just my relationship with the bicycle is it's a profound part of my life. And I had an advantage growing up. There were these boys that lived they were our neighbors, and they lived on the other side of the hill, which was totally treed. And these three brothers built bike paths in the trees. I mean, with berms and whoop-de-doos and bumpty bumps and the whole deal. So, we moved to this house when I think I was 4. I think the bike path started going in by the time we were like 7 or 8. So I started mountain biking, literally, like just trail riding on cool terrain with some, a little bit of elevation in there just to get the heart moving from a really young age. And yeah, and I just want to relate. Then 2 weeks ago, I was in a training in Austin, Texas, and when I looked at this, it was for a yoga training, and I looked at the neighborhood in Austin, and I looked at some hotels and Airbnb and whatnot. And I'm like, well, I just need to get there and rent a bike for the week so I can get around, because it's going to be hell to try to navigate these roads. And I only need to be a mile from the venue, and I'm going to be spending all my time writing my book or at the venue, so I might as well just be on a bike. And so I booked through Airbnb. I emailed a host who seemed super friendly, and I chose him based on these super friendly comments that this guy loves Austin, loves telling people, loves to hook you up with whatever. So I'm like, okay, that's my man. And so I book with him, and then I say hey, if you know someone who wants to rent me their bike for the week, that'd be great. And he emails me right back. He's like, oh, my girlfriend does. So sweet. So I get there. I get this bike. It needs a little something. I do the little something via YouTube video that it needs. And I have a sweet bike to get back and forth for the yoga studio. And just the connection to the neighborhood that I have now from being on the bike and having taken a number of different routes to get between his house and the store and his house and the studio and his house and my favorite coffee shop where I'd go to, write my book in the morning before class. And the whole experience was so different because I chose to rent a bike instead of a car, or chose to rent a bike instead of using Uber or Lyft or their local, car service stuff.
Yeah, so, that totally it connects you. There's things that you miss, obviously, when you're in a car, you're shooting by. In 2002, I did a bike tour in Mongolia with 2 other girlfriends, and just in general, taking it on a larger scale than just a small commuting around town, you don't, the experiences you have along the road of interacting with people versus being on a tour bus or whatever else it is. It's you interact so much more with the environment around you, especially this day and age where we're so consumed by everything digitally. Children as well. Everything is streamlined. You're looking at a gadget, we're looking at our computers, and we're missing everything that's happening on the outside. And when you get on the bike, whether it's just going 1 block, you're going to notice so much more that's surrounding you and engage so much more with the environment around you. And so I think, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's even interesting for me to reflect back. I'm sure you're the same way. In college years, a lot of my friends didn't have bikes, and then there were my friends that had bikes, and the 2 groups had an entirely different experience of campus and off campus.
Totally.
I mean, like for some of us, like we could get cross campus in about 2 minutes, and it was going to be fun, and it was going to be an adventure, and and then we'd get there, and for other people, it was like a 20-minute walk.
Totally.
Right? And then they had to like strategize. Well, if I go over, then I'm going to be over there, instead of having the flexibility of mobility. And to me, if I think of like a kid not learning to ride a bike as a kid, the consequences for them, like how I know as being an adult educator, people are often embarrassed by what they don't know, so they play it safe. I mean, Carol Dweck calls it fixed mindset. Like fixed mindset, people are much less likely to take a risk. And if you didn't learn how to ride a bike as a kid, the risk as a teenager, just from like the number of people that are going to make fun of you if you try, right?
It's huge, and it's stressful, right? We always say that a lot of families will ask, well, my teenager is, into his or her friends, or, they just want to hang out in groups. They don't want to ride with me much anymore. And this would come from, two different types of families, but, the families whose kids did ride young up until they hit that teenage point, quite a few of those kids get through those teenage years and they come back to it, So I know a lot of families do worry about, that teenage years. And we always say, get them on their bikes young, and sure, they're going to go through a phase, and we can't stop that. You can only, some kids don't, some kids stay on the bike. But if we get them fired up young and it becomes a part of their life, then whether they take a break as teens or, like you said, they are able-bodied on the bicycle, they're not going to go through that stress of not being able to do it. They'll get through those awkward teenage years and they'll come back to it. The majority of these kids will come back to it because it's going to be something that's so part of their life, and they just have to get through that foggy stage.
Yeah, totally. Right? I mean, there's a reason there's that expression. It's like riding a bike,
exactly.
Once you get the feeling and the balance. And so, I mean, even the new bikes, right? So Indy learned on one of those scoot things, and we had it in we had it in our kitchen, and there was a pellet stove, which doesn't actually get hot to the touch. And then the cook stove were in the center. And so there's a circle.
Sweet.
And she had this song, and it was like her first song she made up, and we're big at making up songs and rhymes. And it was bike a bike a bike a bike a bike, bike a bike a bike a bike a bike a bike. That was right.
That's awesome. We should use that as the intro to our podcast.
Okay, I'll get her to work. She actually has a voice lesson tomorrow, so I'll have them work on her.
That'd be great.
So I mean, it's hilarious. It is totally hilarious. And she would just go in circles. And I remember this, like, totally like the chunky toddler, the sort of had her baby fat and this like silly smile on her face. And like literally she would just keep going, and the song is just playing in the background, and it was endless. And then occasionally she'd mix it up and go the other way.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so then we see these kids that have that feeling of glide and of really a different relationship to balance and gravity. And they're developing it so young because the tools are better, right? Like the bike tools for learning little are better. And so they don't have ever that challenge. I mean, I think the way of like learning with training wheels is so it's so regressive at this point because it's so much harder to get the feeling.
Yep.
And then if we get the feeling before we need to ever pedal, right? Then it all makes
it's like a little bit of a crutch, in a way. We find especially even older kids can learn with that balance bike technique. At the bike shop, we used to just pull the crank arms and pedals, or even just the pedals off of a regular bike, a little kid bike. If a family didn't want to throw down on a balance bike, or they had, say, a 5 or 6 year old who they didn't want to go to the small little balance bike, we just pull the pedals off and watch those kids scoot themselves around and learn balance. And once they have the balance, the pedal activity comes so quickly. Our son was less than 3, and it was funny because we put him on his pedal bike, and the bike path in front of our house is like a gradual, slowly goes downhill a little bit. And he got on the pedal bike and, went down the whole way balanced, but the pedal thing was awkward for him. So a friend of mine suggested go to the thrift store, get a tricycle. or a little tricycle.
Yeah.
And put Braden on it. He'll figure out pedaling in no time, and then just bring it back to the thrift store. That's what we did. Literally, it was like an hour that he sat on that tricycle, got back on the bike, and off he went, and there was no turning back. And it was cool, and it was awesome to see too. You mentioning your daughter singing. All these little kids that we do all these kids groups and bike rides with, it is the common thread. They all are humming. They're all singing at some point along the trail. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, come on, guys, like pay attention a little more, because they're like, hitting their pedal on a rock or something because they're so in depth in song. But it would be funny to have somebody, study those patterns and what the level of happiness is within that child at that point, because you think as adults you hum as you're moving around when you're happy, not when you're stressed or bummed. And so it's really funny to watch how these kids, and my son included, he's always singing, unless has to climb a hill and he's having a meltdown, which they all do. They have their ups and downs. But
hey, I do too.
Me too. Totally. And I wish I can like fall on the ground though and scream and like that tell somebody to feed me and get me an ice cream or something.
Yeah, I love that though. I love that idea of just like breaking down what's the next little thing here? Oh, it's balance. Oh, okay, let's do balance. And okay, it's pedaling. Okay, let's take balance out. Let's just do pedaling. And let's put them together. And and it does seem like, exactly. Oh, and then brakes. Oh, what an interesting concept. Hand signals. Wow. But like that whole idea of just some of the different progression. And I just want to mention too, like I'm a mountain biker. I'm becoming a little bit of a road rider now that we live in Alton. I can bike up Targhee every day if I want, and that's super cool. But I'm also an urban rider. And this is something that I didn't really realize I was becoming. But after college, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I wasn't willing to give up the freedom of the bike. And I had a job with the International Institute for Energy Conservation and Global Warming, and I was in the downtown area near Capitol Hill, and then I also had a night job at Patagonia because I needed gear, because I knew I was eventually going to leave the city and I would need new skis and a new snowboard and a new tent and new like everything, because I was like a starving college student getting out of college and having
you found a job. You found a job. I found a single bike shop owner to feed my gear addiction. So.
Perfect. Yeah, right? We all have our ways. And so I go to Patagonia, and it was a triangle between where I lived and Patagonia and the internship. And I looked at like the public transportation options, and it was going to take me forever. And I didn't have a car. And for me, it wasn't even a thought of like, would I take public transportation ever? It was never really a thought. It was just... a confirming idea of like, and my parents were like, you're doing what? You're riding your bike on road. And DC at the time, I mean, this is 95, was like not a bike friendly city. I would imagine today it is not a bike friendly city. But
it's better. It's better. Oh yeah.
Good.
Yeah. They have a path right down the center of what's the road that goes straight to the Capitol? Pennsylvania Ave.
Yeah. Oh, sweet.
Right? Right down the middle. If they put it in the middle, it's actually quite amazing. And they have bike share programs, and it is actually
coming along. Oh, thank gosh.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so at the time there was nothing. I'm so glad in the last 20 plus years it's gotten its act together. But it was, I mean, I could get from any A to B point in 20 minutes, and public transportation would have taken me at least an hour. Right. And so just doing that. And then the skills I gained from that were huge. So then when Winston and I were living in San Francisco years later, actually, I was in China right before then and in Beijing, which was an incredibly bike friendly city where you don't even need to be an urban rider. Like you can just ride your bike like a peasant at the time. I'm sure it's changed too. But then it was interesting. In San Francisco, my roommate, Winston and I, we were living in like a 5-bedroom apartment in San Francisco early in our mid-20s. And San Francisco at the time was not a very bike-friendly city. It was pretty lethal, but if you had the skills, it was totally manageable.
Yep.
So my roommate gets inspired by us, and this is an old college roommate who did not. She was one of the like not bicycle riders in college, and like we get a call later. She's in the hospital because like her back wheel ended up in a train track. Yeah, and she didn't see it coming. But any experienced rider would have like seen it coming, a mile away. But my point being this is there's these skills, right, that enable this mobility and this freedom and this efficiency, and they actually help urban planning. Because now, like your point to DC's getting its act together. Lots of cities are getting their act together. We can see even in Salt Lake, or in your city, like there's these little bike programs where you can put your credit card in and use a bike for a little while, right? It's if we don't develop some of the early skills of how to ride, and then how to use hand signals, and then how to look for objects that might either like give you a really good time or a really bad time. Right? Like it either opens doors or it closes doors. And so for her then, she was then scarred. Like bikes, city, dangerous, no go, can't, and to me it's like, oh, if there were just some skill building, just that, like biking as a kid, biking as a teenager, biking in college, that incident never would have, that wouldn't have happened in that way.
No, you become more aware when you're more comfortable with it. I've noticed the same thing with other older, with friends my age who didn't grow up, biking. Everything seems like it's when you're learning a new sport, you're paying attention to each step so hard that it almost sets you back. It doesn't just come natural. And so that totally makes, even down to wearing a helmet, right? There's adults who are like, oh gosh, I don't want to mess up my hair or whatever. And so when you have kids young, the helmet goes on, it's second nature. Nothing becomes a tedious step. It all flows together. And I think that's a really important thing that you bring up that we probably don't even talk about as much with buddy pegs, is that one area of just the nature of it becoming just what you do. And then I think you're just more aware of your surroundings again and what's going on. You feel confident. I think confidence is like the biggest part of it. And it doesn't seem like a big deal. We experience when we travel the same thing. What? You're going to get bikes? You're going to do it on bikes? That seems crazy. And, for us, we're like, no, this is what we do. And it feels better.
The other way is crazy. The other way is so crazy.
And I think maybe kids also are so used to the parents constantly being like, make sure you look both ways, before you cross the street. So it gets so ingrained in them young. Whereas when you're an adult, you don't have somebody standing behind you saying, stop at the corner, look both ways, make sure you're paying attention. Cars come from all angles. Don't just look one way. So maybe, obviously when they're kids, they have mom and dad who are constantly harping on them, and it's going to settle in there. You know?
Yeah.
You hope.
You hope. Right. No, it does. It totally does. It's osmotic. And I just want to bring up, too, the camaraderie that happens with a bicycle, like whether it's for transportation. In D.C., in that job I had, one of the guys I worked with was also a bike commuter. And then two other guys did it like a little bit. They do it about 50% of the time. But another one of the guys was 100% of the time. And so the camaraderie for us that kicked off of like, oh, we can do 15 minutes of our commute together sometimes. So we always would try. And then a special bond was formed, from that. And then soon we're riding off trail together on the weekends with these other buddies. And my whole world opens because of sharing that together. And then when I think of like my bike posse here and the Tetons, the guys I ride with, it's such a different thing. Like the relationship that we have is we just are bike buddies. And it's just what it is. And it's super fun. And we push each other and just at our pace and our level. And we all are getting better every year. And and we help each other, even with the little things of like, Scott helps me with my bike. So does my husband and stuff. And I help them with like business thinking. It's like, it's a good even trade there. And to me, there these certain relationships that just can't, like the camaraderie that can happen because we're all experiencing that same freedom. And physical challenge and just the cool things that happen when you're out doing something together that like a car would never facilitate, No,
it's a funny story. The other day we're in the middle of a massive house remodel on top of this Kickstarter campaign. So it's been intense, to say the least, but we were outside and my son was out there, playing with something, hammering wood chunks together or something. And these two kids, they're neighbor kids. They're a couple of years older. We live right on the bike path in Victor near a little bike park. And these two little kids, we know them, but Braden doesn't really hang out with them very much. They're a little older. They pull into our driveway and they just go, hey, does Braden want to come to the bike park with us? And you should have seen Braden's face. He was like, oh, the older kids have asked me to go do something. And he just looked at us with these wide eyes, like, can I? And we're like, go for it. And he grabs his stuff and off he goes. He pedals down to the bike park with these two boys, and they come back to our house and they start building little jumps. And just again, yeah, that confidence, that camaraderie, it all happened in front of our eyeballs right there. Mm-hmm. And one of the boys said, my older brother's in the house with his friend, and they're just watching TV, and that we were over it. We want to do something. And you were like, yeah, I want to hear that. That's cool.
Awesome. So with the Kickstarter campaign, when I just want to hear a little bit about, because I've self-published and now I'm talking to a publisher for my next book. I've never done a Kickstarter for a book. I've thought about it. But tell me a little bit about that process for you and where you are with creating the book and the illustrations and all that. Like, do you do the book ahead of time and then do the Kickstarter, or what do you do?
No, well, we have, same with the first book. We had the outline and the story written. But as far as moving forward, it's the artwork that costs, because we can't even draw a stick figure.
Yeah.
So if we can't hit our goal, it's not likely that we're going to be able to move forward with this project at this time, just because the cost of the illustrator, especially this new illustrator, is the biggest chunk of the project. We decided to go the Kickstarter route for these two books because, as you know, probably with publishers, not all, but there is a certain amount of rights you lose, and we have a bigger plan for Buddy Pegs. We have our first book. We launched 3 months ago, the World of Buddy Pegs podcast. And so the dog characters from the first book have these adventures out of this bicycle shop, a fictitious bicycle shop called Buddy Pegs in the town of Spokesville. And it's a wonderful storytelling for kids. We have a great voice actor, Bob Berkey. He's been in theater forever. He works with my husband right now. We'll be introducing different characters and voices, but it's been wonderful. And we also want to do small little animated pieces down the line. So we really needed to maintain full rights to everything. And so we were finding a hard time going traditional publishing route because of that. Yeah. So Kickstarter, what's nice is a lot of people,
and even with the branding, just so people know, like, you can even give up some of your branding rights when you give up a book.
Exactly. And so the thing about Kickstarter is, I think a lot of people think it's a donation. And I think that's what we've had the hardest time trying to let people know. This is not a GoFundMe. This is not a donation, unless you want it to be. You are pre-ordering something. So you're pre-ordering our book. You will get that book. Yeah. Sure. There are levels where it's a certain price for a level, and our friends and family or people who really want to see this project go will tack on a few bucks above what the level is worth. And there can be donating if somebody wants to do that. But we really, we have a level on there right now for bike shops. It's a pre-order level. Order a case at wholesale. And they're going to get that book and sell it in their shop. And it's not a donation. It's a pre-order, which most retail shops do anyway.
I just want to interject here too. Like, on the Kickstarter page, the CTA button, for anyone who's into online marketing, that's the call to action button, right? Yeah. It says back this project, and it shouldn't. It should say pre-order this book.
Oh, which page is that? Is that on my page?
I'll send you the link, but it's the Buddy Pegs taking the lead. But I would imagine that's not necessarily your doing. I would imagine that is the template. No, Kickstarter uses.
You can change it. We actually, on our website, we've been messaging pre-book, and so we just missed changing that.
Yeah. Because even at the top, it's like back this. Because I totally agree with that misconception, and often when I find misconceptions, there's usually. I feel like sometimes I'm a professional online marketer, even though, like, I don't want to be that. I just want to be the yoga healer. But in order to be the yoga healer, I need to be a professional online marketer.
Totally.
is that there's so much in the cool side of marketing is it's just communication with,
Exactly.
and to me it's collaboration with members or with tribe, right? And
Totally.
so whenever something's like, oh, there's this misconception, I'm like, oh, how can we make it? How can
No.
we clear it up? And so it's so super clear. So
Yeah,
are you
no.
guys going to be doing training stuff too? Are you going to be doing any like training videos and whatnot
Yes,
for kids?
we do on our YouTube channel right now. We do have some pro parent tech tips we do, from how to pack a bike if you're traveling, how to assemble it, take it apart, basics. We have how to adjust a shifter, because most kids' bikes you buy come with a little grip shift that is impossible for children to twist. And so we have a little, down to a part number, go into your local bike shop, ask for this little friction lever, and boom, kids can shift. So yeah, we have some little videos we're posting on our YouTube station, some online resources, ready to ride checklists and such that we will send out to folks, subscribers and such. And we also
Great.
have a new feature. We're calling it the Buddy Pegs Raise Riders Festival. And so what it is we have been going to a bunch of different events where organizers are essentially seeking us out as a festival within a festival. They don't want to maybe deal with kids' activities.
Yeah.
A lot of these big races and such and festivals take a lot of time, and a lot of times the organizers don't have the bandwidth for the kids portion. So we have been going in with our festival within a festival, and we organize scavenger hunts, group rides, decorate your own cowbell, decorate your own number plate. We show up with like the arts and crafts table, the whole deal. And it's awesome. We just did Ride Sun Valley Festival. We were invited to the Mountain Film Festival in Telluride this year, which was awesome. We'll be at Idaho Labor Day weekend up at Targhee, and that is one of our favorite events. And then Levi's Grand Fondo is an amazing event in San Jose, California every year, raises a ton of money for the King Ridge Foundation, which helps at-risk youth. It's a great event. And so we are part of these various events, and it's really cool. So people can definitely reach out to us if they have an event and they, want some resources. We can help with that for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, and you guys, that's just at buddypegs.com. You can go and find a place to contact us at the bottom. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm so excited for you guys with this next book. And just let the listeners know too. So if they get in by a certain date, July 21st, this campaign ends. So there'll be a lot of people listening to this after that as well, just by the nature of our podcast has long legs. Yeah. So if it's after the 21st, what do they do?
Well, the way Kickstarter works is if you don't hit the goal by your date, and that is this Friday, the 21st, it doesn't get funded. We get nothing. None of the funds come through. So at that point, we're going to have to rejigger everything and figure out how we are going to move forward with this next book on our own. So this week is a big push. A couple of cool things we're doing this week to come to the finish line. Each day this week, starting today, we have a new nonprofit that we are giving 10% of that day's sales to. So today is the Specialized Foundation. And basically, they are working with kids with kind of different learning needs, specifically ADHD. They're doing a ton of testing on how the biking and exercise can work with children who have different learning skills. So it's a really cool organization. So Specialized Foundation today, and then we're also going to be People for Bikes. They're huge. They're why DC is getting, all these cities are becoming better bicycle cities. People for Bikes is a huge national advocacy organization. NICA is the high school, it's the middle school, high school racing program, the National Interscholastic Cycling Association. It's amazing. There's a great program here in the Tetons. So they're going to benefit from another day. And then King Ridge Foundation as well, up out of the Sonoma County area. They have worked with us for a while. So yeah, so each day this week, we're hoping people will get on and those sales will go. And then we're also doing a BOGO. So it's back one, give one. And there's an organization called Kids on Bikes, and they really jive well with our mission on just providing what the youth need to live healthier and happier lives. So we are going to donate, for every backer, donate a book to the Kids on Bikes program. So it's a kind of a big push to the end of the week. And so, I hope your listeners will get on Kickstarter. And the book is called Buddy Pegs Taking the Lead. And they can pre-order, I guess, not back, pre-order.
Yeah, pre-order! And get all the sweet benefits.
Exactly.
Awesome, Janine. Well, I'm totally going to be thinking about you guys this week, and we'll get the show up as quick as we can. And I'll stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Kate.
You bet. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.